I'm in the movie.
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm in the movie. I'm Sharon Tate.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 20 movies that left out the real horrific ending.
It's comforting to see that nothing's changed.
You're wrong, Emily. There's no way I could have known this before, but there was always something missing.
For this list, we'll be looking at films that were based, however loosely, on true stories, but left out key factual details that would have made their conclusions more depressing. We're not saying that these movies are worse for leaving these things out, we're just providing a little extra context. A spoiler alert for these flicks is, of course, in effect. Know of any other true story movies that changed the endings? Let us know in the comments. Number 20, Career Struggles, Ed Wood.
This is the one. This is the one I'll be remembered for.
If you know anything about the real Ed Wood, then you know that his whole career was filled with ups and downs. Mostly downs, come to think of it. But his real life, post-Plan 9 from Outer Space, doesn't exactly match the tone of the final scene.
Let's get married.
Huh?
Right now, let's go to Vegas.
But Eddie, it's pouring and the car top is stuck.
Boy, it's only a 5-hour drive, and it'll probably stop by the time we get to the desert. Heck, it'll probably stop by the time we get around the corner. Let's go.
After the premiere of the aforementioned flick, Ed and Kathy go off to get hitched. The on-screen text at the end alludes to his descent into alcoholism and nudie films, but that barely even scratches the surface. In addition to adult movies, Wood wrote upwards of 80 sex novels just to get by, often spending the money immediately on booze. Though he and Kathy stayed together until his death, their home life wasn't exactly swell, to say the least. Number 19. Hindered acceptance speech, A Beautiful Mind. Ron Howard's A Beautiful Mind is an emotionally wrought exploration into a psyche that is both brilliant and damaged, showing the toll schizophrenia had on mathematician John Nash.
Saw my name on the lecture slate. You lying son of a bitch!
Who are you talking to? Tell me who you see.
Though the depiction of the disease wasn't entirely accurate to Nash's experiences, they work in a narrative sense. After a heavy 2+ hours of runtime, Nash accepts the Nobel Prize and dedicates it to his wife Alicia in a speech.
It is only in the mysterious equations of love that any logical reasons can be found. I'm only here tonight because of you.
As cathartic as this moment is, Nash's disease prevented him from making any such speech in real life. Though the movie came out 14 years prior, it should be at least mentioned that Nash's story would end tragically as he and Alicia were killed in a car accident in 2015. Number 18. Failed Businesses, Schindler's List. As if Schindler's List wasn't horrific enough. And no, what we're about to describe is nothing compared to the actual horrors of WW2, but it is interesting nonetheless.
I could have got more. I don't know if I just... I could have got more.
Oscar, there are 1,100 people who are alive because of you. Look at them.
After the war, Oskar Schindler found himself financially reeling, proving no good deed goes unpunished. He moved to Argentina and raised chickens for a while, but this venture eventually went belly up and he returned to Germany.
That's to be expected. Startup problems. This isn't pots and pans. This is a precise business.
His subsequent business ventures were even less successful, forcing him to declare bankruptcy in 1963. On-screen text acknowledges this, but not long after, Schindler suffered a heart attack, and from then on was sustained on donations from the families that he helped save. Though there's some heartwarming humanity there, it's still saddening to hear that he didn't prosper as much as he deserved. Number 17. Divorce and Allegations of Mistreatment, The Theory of Everything.
If someone is prepared to offer it, I want to reject.
The Theory of Everything definitely depicts the fraught ending to Stephen Hawking's marriage to Jane Wilde. But while the punctuating on-screen text is right in that they eventually stayed friends, it leaves out a good portion during which they decidedly were not.
I did my best.
During their marriage, Hawking became close to one of his nurses, Elaine Mason. Hawking actually left Wilde for Mason in 1995, but his second marriage may not have been so peachy either. In the early 2000s, police started an investigation on concerns that Hawking was being physically abused, but it was quickly closed when Hawking refused to make a statement. Hawking and Mason divorced in 2006 before his passing in 2018. Number 16. No Revenge, The Revenant. It's a little weird to call an ending horrific because it didn't actually have a violent confrontation, but such is the nature of The Revenant. In the movie, frontiersman Hugh Glass goes through hell after his son is murdered and he's left for dead, ultimately tracking down, then getting revenge on the man responsible.
You came all this way just for your revenge, huh? Will you enjoy it, Glass? 'Cause there ain't nothing gonna bring your boy back.
In reality, Glass got no such revenge. Of the two men who left him for dead, Glass tracked down a man named Bridges, but ultimately spared him on account of his youth and inexperience. The other, the John Fitzgerald depicted in the film, was virtually untouchable, having enlisted in the army. Glass telling him that he would kill him should he ever leave. The intent was there, but it's definitely less climactic.
Unless he re-enlisted so he could justify killing again. These tracks right here are his.
Number 15. The Davies Boys' Unhappy Endings. Finding Neverland. If you need evidence that real life is far from a fairy tale, look no further than the Davies Boys, the inspiration for Peter Pan and the Lost Boys. Finding Neverland ends sadly enough, with Peter Pan author J.M. Barrie adopting the Davies Boys after the tragic death of their mother, Sylvia.
She went to Neverland. And you can visit her anytime you like. If you just go there yourself.
The final scene has a sadly uplifting undertone, but tragedy would follow the family in real life. Eldest son George was killed in a World War I battle in 1915, and in 1921, second youngest Michael drowned alongside a friend, with some questioning if it was wholly accidental. Mere months after Jack succumbed to lung disease in 1959, Peter himself took his own life, having struggled greatly for being the namesake of Peter Pan.
And I would be extremely honored if you would allow me the use of your name for one of the characters.
I don't know what to say.
Say yes.
Number 14. Whale's Ambiguous Fates. Big Miracle. Everyone loves an uplifting story about humanity banding together to save animals in need. So it's not surprising that Big Miracle ends with the trapped gray whales escaping their icy prison to freedom.
You know what? I'm gonna miss them.
Though Operation Breakthrough, the real-life rescue mission on which the film is based, ended in a similar manner, there wasn't nearly as much optimism to be had.
Just stop fighting. That baby is gone. You can't change that.
Though the baby whale did indeed die while the parents were freed from the section of ice that they were trapped in, their physical states after such an ordeal meant little hope that they'd survive much farther past very similar terrain. No evidence was ever found either way, but many experts believe that the whales didn't get nearly as big of a miracle. Number 13. Unhappy Marriage. My Left Foot. Christy Brown was a man who endured many hardships in his life. While the biopic My Left Foot doesn't shy away from that fact, it did leave out a dark chapter of his story. His relationship with his wife, Mary Carr.
Hello, my name is Mary. I'll be with you till you go on this evening.
The film depicts Christy meeting Carr at a charity event, and the film ends with them celebrating with a bottle of champagne.
What do we drink to?
Let's drink to Dublin.
To Dublin?
Yeah.
Why?
Because Christy Brown was born there.
Unfortunately, their happily ever after may not have been so happy after all. When Christy Brown died at the age of 49, a post-mortem analysis showed bruising on his body. Many suspected that the bruises were from neglect or from someone physically harming him. A biography was also eventually published that depicted Carr as being unfaithful.
Is he good looking?
Who?
Your appointment.
Yeah, in his own way, he's nice.
It doesn't matter to me. You can meet who you like.
Number 12. PTSD and alcohol issues. Unbroken. Unbroken tells the riveting true story of Louis Zamperini, an American soldier who survived a bomber crash over the Pacific and endured a series of POW camps before the end of World War II. Sadly, as is the case with many veterans, Zamperini was plagued with post-traumatic stress disorder in the years following his return home. He had nightmares of confronting his captors that were so intense that he once attacked his wife at night before regaining his senses. When Zamperini turned to alcohol as a way to sleep better, he only further damaged his psyche. Thankfully, Zamperini found closure with his ordeal and did improve. This was further covered in a faith-based sequel, Unbroken: Path to Redemption. Number 11. Nazi Headquarters. The Sound of Music.
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
When you're singing along to the happy Sound of Music track, you're probably not thinking about Nazis living in the hills. But that's the sad reality. Sometime after the Von Trapp family vacated their Salzburg home in 1938, the house was seized and used as a headquarters for Nazi operations. It specifically served as the summer home for Heinrich Himmler, who was a major architect of many war crimes. The Von Trapp home was even visited by Adolf Hitler himself. Thankfully, the estate was turned back over to missionaries after World War II. We're not surprised that the Von Trapps left out a song about the house's regrettable history.
Goodbye.
Number 10. The Dark Final Years, The Aviator. While Martin Scorsese's The Aviator gave us a pretty solid preview of what Howard Hughes' life would ultimately become, it didn't portray every detail.
Go away. Just for now, but I'll see you soon.
The movie depicted how he would sequester himself from the outside world for months on end. In real life, his isolationist tendencies only continued. His germophobia also prevented him from seeing his own wife for several years before they divorced. By the time that Hughes died in 1976, he was so unkempt that his body was almost unrecognizable.
He is to open the bag with his right hand and hold the bag out to me at a 45-degree angle so I may reach into the bag without touching the paper.
Although Hughes had a stature of 6'4", he weighed a paltry 90 pounds by the end of his life. While we can't list all the crazy details here, we encourage you to look them up. They're as fascinating as they are disheartening.
The way of the future. The way of the future. The way of the future.
Number 9. The Bearded Lady's Life, The Greatest Showman.
It's you, isn't it?
Sir, I have to ask you to leave.
You are so talented, blessed.
Extraordinary. Most audiences knew that The Greatest Showman wasn't entirely factually accurate, especially since P.T. Barnum had a notorious history. But it turns out the movie was omitting more than just the uglier parts of his story. Letty Lutz, the bearded lady, was based on Annie Jones. She was surrendered to his custody when she was just an infant. Not one to despair, Jones was an advocate for the rights of so-called freaks and even broke away from Barnum to promote her cause. But her dire financial straits forced her to return to work with him.
I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me.
Jones would succumb to tuberculosis at just 37 years of age. It's definitely not the big happy family ending the movie implied.
Maybe you are a fraud. Maybe it was just about making a buck. But you gave us a real family.
Number 8. A Firing. Remember the Titans. Remember the Titans is an inspiring true tale of uniting in the face of cultural and racial divides. But not every person involved was infallible. 8 years after leading T.C. Williams' first racially integrated football team to a state championship, Coach Herman Boone was fired.
We will be perfect in every aspect of the game. You drop a pass, you run a mile. You miss a blocking assignment, you run a mile. You fumble the football, and I will break my foot off in your John Brown hind parts.
The main reason he lost his position was because he was accused of harming his own players.
This is no democracy. It is a dictatorship. I am the law.
Although the firing was something of a shock to the city of Alexandria, 3 assistant coaches had threatened to walk if Boone was not relieved of his duties. Ironically, a movie called Remember the Titans forgot to talk about the unceremonious end to Coach Boone's career.
He did a good job up here. He ran a tough camp from what I can see.
Well, I'm very happy to have the approval of a 5-year-old.
Number 7. Billing the family of a musician who lost his life. Titanic.
What's the use? Nobody's listening to us anyway.
Well, they don't listen to us at dinner either. Come on, let's play. Keep us warm. Orpheus.
We know this epic disaster drama couldn't cover every single tragic story involved, even at over 3 hours. But this one is particularly interesting. After the RMS Titanic sank, over 1,500 people lost their lives. One of the bodies recovered was Jock Hume, a violinist who valiantly played amongst his compatriots as the ship sank. But his brave final actions were dishonored.
Right, that's it then.
Goodbye, Ollie. Good luck.
Bye, Boris.
The company that employed Hume had the audacity to bill his father for the damage done to the uniform Hume was renting. And how did it get damaged? We have a feeling it had something to do with the tragic sinking of the Titanic. Thankfully, Hume's father chose not to pay the bill.
Gentlemen, it has been a privilege playing with you tonight.
Number 6. Death After Release. Conviction. Starring Hilary Swank and Sam Rockwell, Conviction is a fairly underseen legal drama about a woman who works to become a lawyer so she can personally get her incarcerated brother exonerated for a murder he didn't commit. A lot of grueling work later, the conviction is indeed overturned 18 years later, much like in real life. And the film ends with Swank's Betty Ann Waters sharing a tender moment with Rockwell's Kenny.
Knowing you're out here, working so hard for me. Knowing that you love me that much.
Curiously, the ensuing on-screen text omits the fact that the real Kenneth Waters tragically died in an accidental fall only 6 months after his release. This information certainly would have put a damper on the story, though it does feel somewhat crucial to getting the whole picture. Number 5. Ostracization and Death, The Accused. This is a really depressing list, isn't it?
That's the best you can do, and your best sucks. Now, I don't know what you got for selling me out, but I sure as shit hope it's worth it.
A powerful film, The Accused follows Jodie Foster's Sarah Tobias, a woman who is assaulted and ultimately able to have abettors convicted in addition to her attackers.
We find the defendant, Matthew Haynes, guilty of criminal solicitation.
While Tobias herself is fictional, she and the movie are based on the story of Cheryl Arujo, who in 1983 went through much the same experience. However, only 4 of the 6 charged with the crime were convicted, serving at most 6.5 years. The trial itself exhibited suggestions of victim blaming, and Arujo was subsequently ostracized in the town of New Bedford, Massachusetts. She then moved to Miami, but tragically died at 25 in a car accident while reportedly being heavily intoxicated. Number 4. What Really Happened to Pocahontas? Pocahontas. This animated Disney movie is notorious for its factual inaccuracies, especially when it comes to the ending.
You have to go back.
But I can't leave you.
You never will. No matter what happens, I'll always be with you. Forever.
Although the film concludes with John Smith's departure from the Americas, it doesn't show that the real-life Pocahontas was subjected to a number of atrocities. She was captured by the English and used as a pawn in negotiations with her father, the chief of the Powhatans, for a full year. In 1614, she got married to tobacco planter John Rolfe, but it's unknown whether Pocahontas had a choice in their union.
That if you know any impediment why you should not be lawfully joined together in matrimony, you will confess it.
She was subsequently taken to England and used primarily as a propaganda symbol. Unfortunately, she passed away from an unconfirmed illness at just 21 years of age.
Your dear mother, Rebecca, fell ill in our outward passage at Gravesend.
Number 3. The town's continued decline. Erin Brockovich. While the real Erin Brockovich deemed the film to be about 98% accurate, this fascinating people's interest story doesn't exactly address what happened after David slayed Goliath.
He's gonna make them pay $333 million.
Brockovich's class action suit was indeed successful, in that the business PG&E was mandated to compensate the families affected by the company's tainted water a whopping $333 million. In real life, many found that their cut was less than they expected. The law firm took roughly 40% of that cut, which is shown, but what's not shown is how unsatisfied many were with where the chips fell.
Boy, do I know how you feel. The first time I heard that number, I said, you've got to be kidding me. 40 goddamn %?
Aaron.
I'm the one that's injured, and this joker sits at a desk all day, and he wants to walk away with almost half my reward.
From there, the town of Hinckley, California turned into a proverbial ghost town. The fears of the water's furthered contamination drove away many residents.
By the way, we had that water brought in special for you folks. Came from a well in Hinckley.
Number 2, Tate murders, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
You are...
I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business.
Much like Inglourious Bastards, Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is pretty upfront about changing historical details, specifically in regards to the Sharon Tate murders. Most everyone knows that pregnant actor Sharon Tate and 4 others were brutally murdered by members of the Manson family in 1969. So those watching this movie were probably expecting to see it. However, in an awesome display of cinematic justice, Tarantino has the Masonites taken out themselves by fictional actor Rick Dalton and his stuntman Cliff Booth, while Tate and the others are safe and sound. While some of the other entries probably could have included their real endings, this is one historical retconning we can totally get behind.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1, Disappearance After Freedom, 12 Years a Slave.
You're not any free
And I promise you upon my liberation, I will have satisfaction for this wrong.
Solomon Northup was a free black man living in New York when he was kidnapped in 1841 and sold into slavery in the southern United States. As the title suggests, he endured 12 grueling years before eventually regaining his freedom and reuniting with his family.
I apologize for my appearance. But I've had a difficult time these past several years.
Afterwards, he wrote the memoir of the same name and became an abolitionist. But 4 years after returning home, he disappeared again without a trace. It's possible that he was resold into slavery or that someone took his life. But his final fate is a sad mystery. Although the film acknowledges the uncertainty regarding his death, it omits just how bleak the end of his life might have been.
Forgive me.
There's nothing to forgive. Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.